A year and a half of war. Putin's miscalculation. In February 2022, the world watched in disbelief as Russian forces invaded Ukraine. This wasn't just a border skirmish. Putin launched a full-scale invasion, aiming to decapitate the government in Kyiv. He expected a swift victory, a blitzkrieg to subdue Ukraine and solidify his grip on the region. Putin's gamble was built on a fundamental miscalculation. He underestimated the Ukrainian people's resolve and the West's unity in response to his aggression. Instead of a quick win, Putin found himself bogged down in a costly and protracted war, one that has exposed the weaknesses of his military and shaken the foundations of his regime. The invasion has resulted in a humanitarian catastrophe. Thousands of civilians have been killed, cities lie in ruins, and millions have been displaced from their homes. The world is grappling with the consequences of this conflict, from soaring energy prices to a reshaped geopolitical landscape. One thing is clear: Putin's war of choice has backfired spectacularly, and the longer it drags on, the more evident his misjudgment becomes. Putin's initial strategy hinged on the element of surprise and the belief that Ukraine would crumble under the weight of a massive assault. He aimed to capture Kyiv quickly, install a puppet regime, and integrate Ukraine back into Moscow's sphere of influence. This plan was built on several flawed assumptions. Putin misjudged the strength of Ukrainian resistance, both from the military and the civilian population. He also underestimated the West's resolve to impose crippling sanctions on Russia and provide substantial military aid to Ukraine.
The invasion was framed by Putin as a necessary measure to denazify and demilitarize Ukraine, a country he views as an artificial construct intrinsically linked to Russia. This narrative, widely rejected as a fabrication, served to justify the invasion to the Russian public and rally support for his actions. However, the reality on the ground quickly diverged from Putin's script. The Russian military faced fierce resistance, their advance stalled, and the much-anticipated swift victory turned into a grinding war of attrition.
The invasion of Ukraine has shattered the illusion of Russia's military might. Despite boasting a formidable arsenal and outnumbering Ukrainian forces, the Russian military has been plagued by logistical failures, poor coordination, and unexpectedly low morale among its troops. The initial phase of the invasion saw Russian forces attempt to advance on multiple fronts, targeting key cities like Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Odessa. However, their progress was quickly hampered by logistical bottlenecks, fierce Ukrainian resistance, and tactical blunders.
The world watched in shock as images emerged of Russian tanks abandoned for lack of fuel, soldiers relying on outdated equipment, and reports surfaced of widespread communication breakdowns within the ranks. The much-touted Russian military machine was proving to be far less capable and sophisticated than previously believed. The initial setbacks forced Russia to adjust its strategy, narrowing its focus to the eastern Donbas region. However, even there, progress has been slow and costly, with both sides locked in a brutal war of attrition.
Ukraine's response to the invasion has been nothing short of remarkable. Faced with overwhelming odds, the Ukrainian people have demonstrated extraordinary courage and resilience, mounting a spirited defense of their homeland. From ordinary citizens taking up arms to volunteer fighters joining the ranks, Ukrainians from all walks of life have answered the call to defend their country. Their determination has been bolstered by effective leadership, innovative tactics, and a deep-seated desire to resist Russian aggression.
Crucially, Ukraine's defense has been significantly aided by a steady flow of military aid from Western countries. Anti-tank weapons, surface-to-air missiles, and intelligence sharing have played a vital role in slowing down the Russian advance and inflicting heavy losses on their forces.
The West's unwavering support, both militarily and financially, has been instrumental in bolstering Ukraine's defenses and enabling them to hold off a much larger and better-equipped adversary. This support has come at a cost, but it has demonstrated the West's commitment to defending democracy and deterring further Russian aggression. Section 5. The Global Stage Condemnation and Crippling Sanctions. The international community's response to Russia's invasion has been swift and resolute.
The United Nations General Assembly overwhelmingly voted to condemn the invasion, while numerous countries have imposed unprecedented sanctions on Russia's economy and its elite.
These sanctions have targeted Russia's financial system, energy sector, and access to international markets. The aim is to cripple the Russian economy, limit its ability to wage war, and pressure Putin to change course.
The impact of these sanctions has been significant, sending shockwaves through the Russian economy and isolating it from the global financial system. The ruble has plummeted in value, inflation has soared, and access to essential goods has been restricted.
While the full impact of these sanctions will take time to materialize, they have already imposed a heavy cost on Russia's economy and its people. The message from the international community is clear: aggression will not go unanswered, and the price for invading a sovereign nation will be steep. Section 6. Putin's shrinking chessboard, the shifting military landscape. As the war grinds on, the military landscape in Ukraine is shifting.
Russia's initial offensive has stalled, and its forces have been pushed back from key areas around Kyiv and Kharkiv. The focus of the fighting has shifted to the eastern Donbas region, where Russia is seeking to consolidate its control.
However, even in the Donbas, progress has been slow and costly for Russia. Ukrainian forces, bolstered by Western weapons and intelligence, have been putting up fierce resistance, inflicting heavy losses on the invaders.
The conflict has devolved into a brutal war of attrition, with neither side able to achieve a decisive victory. The longer the war drags on, the more evident Russia's military weaknesses become. Logistical problems persist, equipment shortages are mounting, and morale among Russian troops is reportedly low.
The much-vaunted Russian military machine is proving to be far less capable and resilient than initially perceived. On the other hand, Ukraine's defenses are becoming increasingly robust thanks to a steady flow of Western military aid, effective leadership, and the unwavering determination of its people.
While Russia still holds a significant military advantage on paper, the situation on the ground is far more complex and fluid.
Domestic pressure and international isolation. The war in Ukraine is testing Russia's military and exposing cracks in its domestic stability and international standing.
Economic sanctions are biting and the Kremlin's propaganda is struggling. Inflation is soaring, the ruble is plummeting, and citizens face shortages.
The long-term economic consequences for Russia are likely severe.
The war has triggered dissent, with protests despite the threat of arrest. Internationally, Russia is increasingly isolated.
Section 8. Beyond the battlefield. The global impact of a protracted war. The war in Ukraine is not just a regional conflict. Its repercussions are being felt globally. From soaring energy prices to disruptions in global supply chains, the conflict is having a profound impact on the global economy.
The war has exacerbated inflation, particularly in energy and food prices. Sanctions on Russia's energy sector have sent global energy markets into turmoil. Disruptions to grain exports from Ukraine have raised concerns about food security.
The conflict has highlighted Europe's dependence on Russian energy and accelerated efforts to diversify energy sources. Section 9. The Crumbling Empire. A potential turning point in geopolitics. The war in Ukraine could mark a turning point in geopolitics, potentially hastening the decline of Russia's influence on the world stage and reshaping the balance of power in Europe.
Putin's gamble has backfired spectacularly. Instead of a swift victory, he has plunged Russia into a costly war, exposing the limitations of its military and the fragility of its economy.
The war has galvanized Western unity and strengthened NATO's resolve to counter Russian aggression, providing Ukraine with substantial military aid.
The conflict has accelerated a shift in global perceptions of Russia. Once seen as a resurgent power, Russia is now widely viewed as a pariah state.
The war in Ukraine could mark the beginning of the end of Russia's imperial ambitions and ushering in a new era of geopolitical realignment. Section 10. Charting the uncertain future. Scenarios for Ukraine and Russia. The outcome of the war in Ukraine remains uncertain, with several potential scenarios on the horizon. One possible scenario is a negotiated settlement, with both sides making concessions to end the bloodshed. Another possibility is a protracted stalemate, with neither side able to achieve a decisive victory. A third, more optimistic scenario is a Ukrainian victory, with Russian forces pushed back and Kyiv regaining control of its lost territories. The future of Ukraine and Russia hangs in the balance, with profound implications for the region and the world. Section 11. The Price of Aggression, a stark reminder for the world. The war in Ukraine serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of aggression and the fragility of peace in the 21st century.
The conflict has resulted in the deaths of thousands of civilians, displaced millions from their homes, and inflicted untold suffering on the Ukrainian people. The images of destruction and human misery emanating from Ukraine are a testament to the brutality of war and the urgent need for a peaceful resolution to this conflict.
The international community must continue to provide humanitarian assistance to those affected by the war and hold those responsible for war crimes accountable. The war in Ukraine is a tragedy for all involved, but it also offers valuable lessons for the world.
It underscores the importance of international cooperation, the need to uphold the rules-based international order, and the imperative to defend democracy against authoritarian aggression. As the conflict continues, the world must remain united in its condemnation of Russia's aggression and its support for the Ukrainian people.
The pursuit of peace and justice in Ukraine must remain a top priority for the international community.